Alrighty, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Trading Room with Simon Ree. I am your host, Hisham. And without further ado, Simon, something that I keep seeing, the stat that I'm seeing, something like 90% of traders lose money, retail traders lose money. And most people blame bad strategy, wrong stocks, or even bad timing. You say they're actually wrong about the cause. So, what is it actually?
Yeah, the statistics on retail traders are dreadful. They're woeful, and it really all boils down to risk management, or rather, the complete absence of it. The complete lack of it. Now, don't switch off, all right? Because if you listen to and absorb the next 15 minutes or so, you're going to be so far ahead of the other 90% of retail traders who lose money. Because what happens is 90% of retail traders do a really lousy job of risk management. And this is one of the main reasons why the statistics on retail traders are so bad. Um, the thing about risk management is it sounds boring. All right. It doesn't generate clicks on social media. It's not sexy. It's not exciting. I start talking about risk management and people switch off. People don't want to hear me talk about risk management frameworks. They want to hear about my secret MACD settings. Um, and what's even worse is many traders think that risk management doesn't even apply to them. They think that if they've got a system that gives good entries and a high win rate, what do they need risk management for, right? Now, I want to tell you about a trader I met fairly early on in my career. He was the friend of a colleague of mine, extraordinary guy, um, really, really bright. I mean, you talk to him, he's one of those blokes, he just sounded like a professor of the markets. And he obsessed over his win rate. And he had a win rate north of 80%. His entries were genuinely impressive. You know, his tape reading was superb. But year after year, he underperformed his peers. And I mean, his bosses were puzzled, his colleagues were puzzled, even he was puzzled. And you see that the problem wasn't his entries were pristine. His problem was always his reward to risk. Every trade that he lost was costing him three times what every winning trade made him. And so the math didn't work. So no matter how brilliant his entry system was, the expectancy of the whole system was barely positive. It was like he's trying to fill a bucket that had a hole in the bottom of it. Now, he was eventually let go from the firm he was working at. Last I heard, he was still trading, still struggling, still convinced he had to optimize for his entries. But you know, the thing that's going to really improve your expectancy of your trading system is how good you are at risk management.
Right. Wow. And so the single biggest lie in trading education is, I guess, find the right entry.
Yeah, it's a huge lie. The story goes something like this: pick the right direction at the right time with the right setup, and you just start printing money, right? The exit, the position size, the rules for what to do when things go wrong, they're all just mere administrative details for you to work out later. No, they are not mere administrative details. Risk management isn't a module at the end of the course, it is the skill. Your chart reading, your indicators, your scanner, that's the vehicle. Risk management is whether you'll survive the journey.
Right. And even yourself, you've spent years at Goldman Sachs and Citibank. What is the fundamental difference in how people at that level think about risk versus how most retail traders would approach it?
Yeah, it's a great question. At Goldman, we were never sitting around arguing about whether a symbol was going to go up or down. All right. We were debating whether the risk was worth taking. All right. You see the difference? Like whether the risk was worth the reward. Would we be adequately compensated if the trade worked? How much would we lose if it didn't? And could we live with that? So nobody in that sort of an environment takes a position without knowing beforehand exactly how much they're willing to lose on it. And Paul Tudor Jones, he talks about risk management all the time. And one quote that stuck with me early in my career is he said, he gets up every morning and he assumes all of his positions are wrong until the market proves otherwise. And so having that sort of paranoia about your trading book, it kind of left a mark on me. Um, Now, the problem is most retail traders enter a trade without ever clearly defining the specific conditions that would prove that trade wrong. There's no point of invalidity. There's no line in the sand. They just open a trade and then they have this vague hope that the market cooperates with them. But that isn't trading, all right? What you're actually doing there is you're outsourcing the most important decision in the entire process, i.e., when to get out, to your future self at the worst possible moment when you're unsure and under pressure.
Got it. And I guess how would you describe your own role then? Because even I've heard you say you don't even think of yourself as a trader.
Yeah, I mean, this sounds like semantics, but I actually think it's really important in all of my self-talk. And this is something I genuinely want people watching to adopt. I don't think of myself as a trader. I think of myself as a risk manager. You see, my default position isn't an equity portfolio. My default position is actually cash. And I'm only going to put my money to work when I see a genuinely good opportunity. All right, I need three or four reasons to get into a trade. I only need one reason to get out of a trade. And it could be as simple as doesn't feel right. Now, that shift in identity changes everything about how you approach every single decision. A trader wants to trade. A risk manager waits for the conditions to be right. Now, most retail accounts die because somebody couldn't sit on their hands when there were no compelling setups that day.
Got it. And how would that translate into actual practice? What does the process look like before trade even goes on?
Yeah, so before any position goes on, I already know four things. What's the setup I'm trading? What's the maximum I'm prepared to lose? At what price or under what conditions does the trade get cut? And where am I looking to take profits if the trade works? Now, these are not questions that you answer while the position's moving against you and you're feeling pressure, you're feeling uncertainty. That's a really bad time to be making decisions. All right. Because when the position is moving against you, your brain starts lying to you. All right. And it's not a personality flaw, it is just neuroscience. So the way I think of it is like this: you have an internal CIO, a chief investment officer. This is your highest self. All right. This is the best version of yourself. This is the version of you that isn't scared, it isn't greedy, it isn't trying to prove anything to anyone. And your job as the risk manager is to submit a trade setup to your internal CIO for approval. Here's the setup, here's the entry, here's the point of invalidity, here's where I'm going to take profits if the trade works. Here is the reward to risk. All right, here's the position size relative to my total capital. And so your internal CIO makes the decision based on risk, not on profit potential, not on excitement, not on what some guru said on social media. If your internal CIO says no, there's no trade, no arguments, no bargaining with yourself, no, oh, but this one looks really good. If your internal CIO says no, sit on your hands, don't take the trade.
Got it. And let's get specific for a moment. You teach us something called the 5/2.5 framework.
Yeah.
Please walk us through the math.
So in trading circles, the 1% rule gets thrown around a lot. Risk no more than 1% of your account on any single trade. And the spirit of that is right. But the problem is, if you're only ever risking 1% of your portfolio on a position, it doesn't really matter whether that position doubles or halves. It doesn't really impact your overall portfolio. It's not going to move the needle in either direction. So I teach a version calibrated specifically for risk-defined options, and I call it the 2.5 framework. So the maximum position size is 5% of my NLV, my portfolio. The maximum risk per trade is 2.5%. That's the 2.5 framework in a nutshell. So this is how it maths out. If the risk-defined option position is 5% of my account, the absolute worst case scenario is a 50% stop loss on the premium that I paid. That's what I call my OMG stop loss. All right. But it means the maximum portfolio damage is 2.5%. Now, that's a floor. That's not a target. I'm never putting trades on and just letting them go and waiting for my OMG stop loss to be hit. No, I'm typically exiting losing trades well before that 50% mark, typically at a 15 to 25% loss on the option premium. The OMG stop loss is just the safety net for if the market gaps overnight and I just can't get out earlier.
I see. And would you mind giving us an example with an amount, let's say a $50,000 account?
Yeah, okay. So let's say you're trading a $50,000 account. Your maximum position is $2,500, right? Your absolute worst case loss on that position is $1,250. Now, typically, if you're deploying proactive risk management, your actual loss is probably going to be closer to $400 to $600. All right. Remember, we're never going to let a position just bleed to that maximum OMG stop loss level. Now imagine a 5 trade losing streak. It happens, even with an excellent system, right? Even if you've got a 60% win rate, you can absolutely have 5 losing trades in a row. Now, with the 5 2.5 framework, you might be down 4 to 6% of your account. Uncomfortable? Sure. Nobody enjoys going through that. But is it recoverable? Is it survivable? Absolutely. You can definitely recover from a 4 to 6% drawdown, all right? You're still in the game. Now imagine if you were sizing this way: 5 trades at $5,000 each, held all the way to a 50% loss. Same 5 losers, now you're down $12,500. That's a quarter of your account. Now, to get back to break even from minus 25%, you need a 33% return on your portfolio just to get back to zero. Now, most accounts that blow up, they don't do so from one catastrophic trade. They blow up because the trader survived a couple of bad ones and then kept going with the same position sizing on the same emotional autopilot until there was nothing left.
Yeah. Another thing you talk about also called portfolio heat. I don't hear a lot of people teach about it. Please share what it is.
Yeah, so most retail traders think about each position in isolation. 5 trades at 2.5% risk each looks fine on paper. But if all 5 are bullish bets on US tech or these days on AI, and they're all correlated to the same factors, you don't actually have 5 2.5% risks. You've really just got one big 12.5% risk wearing 5 different hats. And a bad macro print doesn't hit just one of your positions. It's going to hit all 5 simultaneously if all 5 are highly correlated. So portfolio heat is the aggregate directional exposure of the whole book. Managing it means holding positions across different sectors, different instruments, different time horizons, different expiration dates, and sometimes different directional biases. All right, you might have a bearish position over here, which can offset several bullish positions over here. The other thing to watch is expiration clustering. If you've got every position in your book expiring the same week, that's not 5 separate event risks, it's one very busy week. And so I prefer to spread my expirations over time as well.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that, Simon. And you've said publicly, you're wrong about 40% of the time. And yet your returns since 2021 have compounded at over 600% against the S&P's 83% over the same period. How does that work?
Yeah, so the trading education industry has spent decades misleading people that a high win rate is the goal, 80%, 90% win rate. And here I am saying I get it wrong 4 times out of 10. Now, yeah, it sounds counterintuitive, but the reconciliation is actually simple. My average winning trade is about 2.7 times larger than my average losing trade. So with a 60% win rate and winners that size, the system has very strong positive expectancy. That's what asymmetry looks like in practice. Now, I want a minimum 2-to-1 reward to risk on my setups. So for every dollar that I'm prepared to risk, I want at least $2 of potential reward. And that gives gives the system the room to absorb the losers without killing the edge. So the temptation that most traders resist very badly is when a trade is working, they take profits early. And when a trade is losing, they let it run, just hoping that it comes back and starts cooperating with them. But this is exactly backwards. And you've probably heard it before: cut your losses quickly, give your winners some room to breathe.
Mhm.
But in the heat of the moment, most traders do a really bad job of that. Right? It sounds so simple. You could print it on a bumper sticker or a coffee mug. And yet it's the discipline that separates the profitable minority from everybody else.
Excellent set, Simon. And if you don't mind, Simon, I want to bring up something that happened to you in 2008. If
Yeah,
you don't
thanks
mind,
for that.
if you don't mind, can you please tell our audience what happened to you?
Yeah, I mean, in 2008, I lost a seven-figure fortune. This was during the financial crisis, and I made every single mistake that I warn people about today, every single one. I was over leveraged. I didn't manage my risk before entry. My losses ran when they should have been cut. Um, and I was trading opinions, right? Not only my own, but the opinions of people that I admired and respected. And I let my ego override my process. Not that I really had a very good process back then. Now, most traders who blow up, like I said, they don't do so on just one catastrophic bet. They do so because they refuse to take the small loss. And that small loss became a big loss. And then that big loss eventually became an account killing loss. And the whole disaster starts with an ego that just couldn't say I was wrong. And that was what happened to me in '08. Now, the difference between that experience and where I am today, it isn't intelligence. It's that I survived it, I learned from it, and I built a process that means I'll never make those mistakes again. And that's why the pre-trade checklist isn't optional. It's why the 525, 5.2.5 framework isn't optional. These rules exist precisely to protect you from yourself when you need to do it the most. Because when things are going against you, you're emotional, you're unsure, you're a deer in the headlights, your decision making is extremely compromised. You don't want to be making decisions at that point. You just want to be following a recipe.
Amazingly said, Simon. And I believe there's a saying that goes, you learn through others, right? So,
Well, the thing is, right, there are people in this world who, if you tell them the stove is hot, don't put your hands on it, they will learn from that. There are other people who have to go and put both hands on the stove to
right.
learn that it's hot. And there's a subset of those people who have to do it 4 or 5 times until they've got blisters and. But if you can be one of those people that can learn from somebody telling you that stove over there is hot, don't touch it, you'll be miles ahead of everyone else.
Thank you for sharing that, Simon, and thank you for that tip. Last question. If someone is watching or listening to us and they're just starting out, what is the one thing you want them to walk away with?
Survival is the gateway to freedom. All right. Survival in this game is everything. The traders who win over the long run aren't necessarily, the smartest or the fastest. They're the ones who are still in the game 1 year, 2 year, 5 years, 10 years later. The ones who haven't blown up the account. Right? They're the ones who've survived the inevitable losing streaks that will come along with enough capital left to let their edge compound over time. See, what we're doing is allowing probability to work its magic over time. But in the very short term, probability can let us down. Like I said, you can absolutely have 5 losing trades in a row, even with a system with a strong probabilistic edge. So not losing money is the game. Everything else follows from getting really good at not losing money. So think of yourself as a risk manager, not a trader, a risk manager who occasionally puts trades on when the conditions are right. I know that that is a massive psychological shift, but it changes everything about how you approach every single decision in this business.
Simon. All right. This has been an amazing conversation. It's been incredibly valuable. Risk management, folks, the skill Wall Street lives by, but retail seems to skip. You can actually read the full article on our website at taoofTrading.com, and we'll also drop a link to it to our Tao Weekly in the description below. But until then, see you next week, Chimon, and thank you once again.
This has been great, Hisham. Looking forward to next week.
Cheers.
Thank you.